The gold and black butterfly is sipping the nectar. The flower bursts into bloom. Ah, my friends, it is my heart. I send down a shower of white frangipani flowers.
The Aztecs produced a dazzling variety of sculpture, breathtaking in its austere beauty and awesome power. Researchers have been astounded that the Aztecs used only primitive stone chisels to create these monumental works. Yet, for all its life-affirming splendor, Aztec culture was also steeped in a cult of death. Even the city's most remarkable architectural achievement, the Great Temple, had a dark purpose. For here, in the inner sanctum of shrines to the gods, Tlaloc and Huitzilopochtli, were bloody receptacles containing hearts of sacrificial victims. And in the shadows of the temple, another, even more startling ritual was performed. By the 1500s, the Aztecs dominated most of the surrounding city-states and governed an empire of over 10 million. Despite the Aztecs' agricultural genius, the capital of Tenochtitlan could not support itself economically. To survive, it required the tribute of conquered peoples.
Los aztecas son
I believe the Aztecs are an example of a warring people par excellence. Their world was structured around war. The young men knew that the only possibility they had to leave the harsh life of farming, carrying stones, working to build the temples and palaces was to be skillful in war.
Surprisingly, the goal of Aztec warriors was not to kill their enemies in battle. Instead, the Aztecs believed they had to capture them alive, to sacrifice them to the gods. Scholars have been surprised to discover that to the Aztecs and their neighbors, death by sacrifice was more honorable than death in battle. In fact, the sacrificial victims went willingly.
And in return, the captive was promised a world, an afterlife in a world with the sun himself. He would live as a king in this world of the sun.
May his heart not falter. May he long for the flowery death by the obsidian knife. May he savor the sweetness of the darkness. Aztec prayer for sacrificial warriors.
Presiding over these blood offerings were the priests, both male and female. What drove them to slaughter thousands? Surprisingly, scholars believe these religious acts were intended not to display the priests' power, but to show their humility.
They would let their hair grow long, paint their bodies black, and at a ceremony in which they extracted a heart, they would let the victim's blood fall upon their heads in such a way that the sticky, dry blood, the skin and the dirt symbolized the battle of man against his own vanity. That repulsive look showed much devotion.
Human sacrifice took many forms. Perhaps one of the most mystifying to scholars was the act of flaying a captive and then wearing his skin.
They really apparently developed surgical skills in dispatching their victims and in taking off their skins. And we have a number of images, stone idols, of the god Xipe shown actually wearing the human skin.
The purpose of this strange ritual still mystifies scholars.
What the exact significance of wearing the skin was has been very controversial, and scholars disagree. It seems to have had some connection with the promotion of fertility.
Even the most forbidden of all human practices was viewed by the Aztecs as a sacred sacrament. For after death, the victim's limbs were severed from the body, stewed, and ritually eaten by the priests and the nobility.
The victim was transformed, sacralized, as we say, into the Godhead. And by ingesting small pieces of the flesh of the victim, they were ingesting into their own bodies the sacred essence.
When the first Catholic missionaries viewed these startling rites, they were horrified, for they viewed them as a diabolical perversion of their own ritual of communion. The Aztecs, however, saw them as essential for the survival of their world. One rare ceremony, only performed every 52 years, was considered the most vital of all. As night fell, the high priests, dressed to personify their most powerful gods, ascended the highest hill in Tenochtitlan. At precisely midnight, one priest killed a captive and pulled out his heart. Then, inside the victim's chest cavity, he attempted to kindle a fire.
If the priest had failed to ignite this new fire, the universe would end. The stars would turn into monsters, they would descend from heaven, they would devour mankind, and that would be the end of everything. But if the fire flared up, then they knew there was renewal at least for 52 years.
The Aztecs sacrificed to sustain their gods and to ensure the stability of the cosmos. Yet, ironically, their very belief in the supernatural would lead to their annihilation.